This is part two of my video clip on turmeric and curcumin. I introduced you to some scientific studies, and I recommended recommended one magazine. Actually, it's a journal called Life Extension, in March 2016. The article is Curcumin, Aging, Brains, and Cancer. And I just want to quickly revisit that and then say a few things. And then if you go to the bibliography at the end, I always look at the bibliography because that is the evidence for the claims. And then on page 45, March 2016, Life Extension, there is a bibliography on which is number 6. And there it is neurogenesis in the adult hippocampus. The hippocampus is associated with memory. So curcumin has an impact on the hippocampus. So that's an article. That's a very interesting article. And then number 17, resurrecting the immune system. This is also a journal article from a scientific journal. You might want to look at it. And then there is reference 20, which is anti-aging. It's in a journal called Biogerontology. And then there is reference 24, it's the curcumin inhibits formation of amyloid. These are all very, very interesting things that are happening with curcumin. But as I have said, that's not my arena. And the reason why I refer to them are because it adds to our knowledge base, and they are useful because it's all pure science. And I am involved with not primarily science, but metaphysics. Metaphysics is beyond science. And that's why I introduced the phonemes into the herbs. We infuse phonemes because this is the way medicine, herbal medicine, was practiced in ancient India. They say what's important is not just the chemical, but then the radiations that come from the chemical, they were able to know that. So, and then they also knew the being or the deity behind that chemical. Every chemical has a being. Okay, and that's why I sleep with this plant by my bed. This is this is a fantastic plant called, everybody knows it, this is periwinkle. And this periwinkle has so many varieties, then this is one variety. And the cancer medicine in the chemotherapy called vinblastine comes from this herb. So my interest in this herb comes from Agastya, the father of herbology in the Tamil Siddha tradition. He said, get in touch with the goddess. So I just keep by my bedside and also on my desk to have a contact with this plant because it does a lot of things. It's just not only for cancer, but it also keeps the cells young, according to Agastya. In a private Nadi reading that he gave me, this information came through. And that's why I think that the herbs become powerful through the sounds that the Siddhas attributed to the herbs. And then to empower the herbs, you have to use these phonemes. And I wanted to have some scientific tests, and we are it's a small company, so we don't have uh, resources to test it in a larger way. So we are going to do that once we have the funding. But once I wanted to test this for the turmeric. This is the top one. Two pictures are turmeric powder without the phoneme. Then the phoneme infused one, or at the bottom, you can see it is a Kirlian photography, and then you can see the energy changes. So that's why I told that Number Botanicals, you don't sell any herb without the phoneme being infused into it. Down the road, we can do sophisticated research to show that uh, there are really changes that take place at a biochemical level, or the neurochemistry changes, or your DNA changes. All these things are possible, but all these things are very expensive. And then we don't have to wait. The problem is we don't have to wait for a long, long time for the results to come. And then after spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. Uh, the phoneme infused herbs really have a dramatic difference from the herbs which are not treated by phonemes. So turmeric. I just want to make one more reference, one more point. I grew up in Rameswaram, and then I told you yesterday that my mother used to give me every day turmeric milk with turmeric, and and that is a tradition there. And then, unfortunately, through westernization now, nobody does it anymore. But we have to go back and then understand this Ayurvedic and Siddha traditions are very, very powerful tradition. Now, what do villagers do? Villagers in India, particularly in Tamil Nadu, they go to the goddesses, and most of the goddesses carry in their hand uh, turmeric paste. And then the temple priest gives this turmeric paste from the hand of the goddess as not as he doesn't say it's a medicine. He says this is prasad. Prasad is blessed food from the goddess. And then he would say that it will take care of all your problems, financial problems, health problems, and relationship problems. You know, I think a presentation of turmeric as a solution for all these problems in the context of the village tradition of India is very, very profound. Okay, how turmeric can solve problems like like relationship problem or many problems. This could be elaborated in terms of uh, anecdotes people give. That's one thing, and also there are ways of studying. The radiations that come out of this. Then we have not found out what radiations come from there, and so there's a lot of possibilities with turmeric, and uh, you can you may want to take turmeric also as a spice in your cooking. That will be good, on a daily basis. God bless.